Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast. Thank you very much to my subscribers, of course. You are the reason I get to do this and have great guests like the one I have today, Mr. Martin Popoff. Martin has written more record reviews than anyone in the history of music journalism, somewhere around 8,000, probably way more than that now. He has authored approximately 130 books. He was the editor in chief of Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles for 14 years. He has contributed to top shelf production publications like Revolver, Guitar World, Goldmine, and many more. Martin has also been a regular contractor to Banger Films, working on documentaries like Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage, which is just phenomenal. The 11th episode, Metal Evolution, another great one. Martin has also had his own very own podcast called History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff, and he is part of the Contrarians YouTube channel, which are both great. Today, our main focus will be one of his latest books through Motorbooks, an imprint of the Quarto Group. It's called Guns N' Roses at 40, and look at this thing. It is just unbelievable. You got Glossy and Matt. I mean, it is just Martin, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott. Very cool.
Man, these books, I have many of your books, a big fan of your writing. It's just so insightful and passionate, and you live and breathe this stuff, and it's quite obvious. And it comes through in that writing, and so not only are they gorgeous books, they're filled with great words, lots of text. You don't let the pictures carry it through and all the glitz and glamour of it. You actually write the stuff. You're informational and insightful on all of these bands that you're writing about. Tell me the method of choosing what you're going to write. I have books from you from from Angel to Guns N' Roses to Rush, of course. To everybody. You've touched on so many. What's the method that you use to choose what you're going to write about next?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've never really thought about it, but I mean, it's a variety of things. I mean, I suppose uh, I can think of three things off the top of my head. Number one is, who am I a massive fan of? That's a big thing. Who did I grow up on, and I feel like I have a knowledge base. And then another thing that happened is when I started getting into being a rock journalist, meeting Tim Henderson at the HMV Superstore here in Toronto, and he's breaking away from Meat Magazine, starting Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles. So this is 1994. I ended up starting to do a lot of interviews. So as I was doing a lot of those interviews, I got to the point where, okay, I love this band. I've now talked to him 10 times. I've now talked to him 15 times. I have something to offer here. I could put all this together along with my opinions, and I could have a book kind of thing. So the first ones were like Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult, Scorpions, UFO in the early days. And then obviously the other thing is, what will a publisher let me write about? What do they want a book on?
All right.
Certain bands, you get surprised when they tell you, oh, we can't sell on that, that band doesn't sell very well, or we need one on this, or this would be cool, or we've got a great concept and this band would fit with this concept. So there's a lot of back and forth with different publishers on what do you want a book on? What have you not done a book on? What have you not done a book for a different publisher on? What
Right.
have you not done one in this concept? So this concept itself wasn't even my idea. And I don't think even the album by album series books I've been doing for Quarto was my idea. So they come up with
Yeah.
some pretty cool concepts. They've done those illustrated history books, but this is the type of book where the idea, and I've done AC/DC at 50, Van Halen at 50, Bowie at 75, and this is Guns N' Roses at 40. So this is all about um, what are 40 career highlights that you can put in chronological order and then write about those. So everything, so there, it's a whole mix of what band, what have they not done already 2 or 3 times? They don't want to go to the well and start looking for pictures again on. That kind of thing happens with my good buddy Dennis, who's my editor at Quarto. And then yeah, what fits with certain concepts as well.
Yeah, and it's it's a complicated thing, and you figure this out. It's just like I say, all of these books very informational and very fun reading. And I love that at 40 you do those 40 points. Everybody loves a list, right? And we all love to make a list of the best of this or the worst of that. This is that kind of list incorporated into that book form. You get these 40 points, and it's so interesting to read.
And you mentioned the writing earlier. It's like this, the writing challenge of these books is almost like keeping the word count down and having it fit in there. So I think when you get to the final sort of polished, entry in the 40, it is pretty action packed. They can be long sentences. There's a lot in them.
Mhm.
But it's because, I've got to fit it in like a 2 page or 4 page format sort of thing. And quite often I've got to like pare down 30%, 40% of what I want to say. And then you're always thinking about the super fans, and them thinking, oh, it's inadequate. He left this out, he left that out. And that's always painful in itself, right? Is
Right.
is is the idea of having to just get this down to like a diamond hard little bit of writing. So sometimes it's not the case, and you can just write a book as long as you want. But these definitely have that challenge to them.
Yeah, but you're a wordy guy. You have a lot to say. Not
Yeah.
everybody does. Not every writer does. They write. They like to say things, but
Mhm.
they keep it fairly brief and let the pictures talk, or it's just enough to fill the space, not too
Yeah.
much more. You, yeah, that's what I love about your writing is I get a piece of you, I get a piece of your opinions and your view on it. So it's like a conversation where I can sit with a buddy and say, hey, what did you get out of this? And there's a response. It's not just that factual thing. It's really, I love that. That's one of the
Yeah,
main.
thanks. And when I do the more biography type ones that are just like straight chapter per album sort of thing, I mean, that's another part of my style is that I really want to talk about the albums more than anything else, right? And
Mhm.
everything about the albums. But so the way I figure how you get to the end of the book is like a whole bunch of your own interviews, sample the outside press as well a little bit, get quotes from other people's interviews, and then yeah, my opinion is a part of it as well. So the analysis of those songs is one of the funnest things to do, and that's the part where you're almost like really have the same job as like a DJ or whatever, where you're trying to push music on people and explain, oh, this is really cool about this song, and check out what happens at 2 minutes 30 and all that kind of thing. So and then I've got other books, and I've done these for Quarto. I've done a Clash and a Zeppelin for Quarto, and then one on the Damned for my UK publisher, where the Zeppelin and the Clash one. The Zeppelin book is like, it's called Led Zeppelin, all the albums, all the songs, and it's literally just me writing a long, long piece on every single song. So you can go from one extreme to the other. I guess the other extreme would be an oral history, where it's just quotes from the band, like boom,
Right.
boom, boom, just like literally oral history. And then way at the other end is like, here's me literally analyzing every Led Zeppelin song, right? No quotes needed kind of thing.
See, and I love that kind of thing. It's really neat because like I say, we're getting a piece of who you are, what you think, and we can draw comparisons to what we think, and
Yep.
everybody has a personal thought on these things. And
Good point.
again,
Yep.
it's a list. You have that list of songs. We all love the list.
Yeah,
It's a thing.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, we do that all the time on our video shows and my podcast. Top 10 this, top 20 that, reverse order all the time. Leave out the live albums.
Yep, yep,
I've done so, I mean, my Goldmine lists, top 20s for Goldmine that I do. Yeah, I, I,
yep.
I love doing them. Yeah,
Yep.
it's fun.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You mentioned picking out the book you're going to do, or what you're going to write about, and you say, who do I really love? And you write it, that's a possibility. Um, Tell me, have you ever had anything come in, an offer come to you about somebody that you're not crazy about? Would you write something about a band that Yeah, you don't really love them, but you have a lot of information on them. You have an opinion about them. Would you take on a book like that?
That's a really good question because there's a subcategory of that I absolutely have done, and it's like bands that I've grown up with all my life, but they've just always been a little off to the side. I've never studied them properly, and I respect them. And it's like, if I write a book on this band, that means I get to spend finally that time with this band. And it's not just a waste of time. It's not just like, I'm in this for the entertainment value of entertaining myself and studying this band for no end purpose, right?
Right.
So I've done these album by album series books, like I've done for Quarto, right?
Mhm.
And the neat thing about that, yeah, there you go. There's the Rush one, and but let's say the Pink Floyd one, for example.
Mhm.
Let's say the ones I've done for my UK publisher Weimer, which are more like trade paperbacks. But I've done two-parter, so two books for Genesis, and I did one on the Cure, where my whole thing, my ulterior motive was, so the neat thing about those, number one, the concept is I get a panel of experts and we go through every studio album, right? So the neat thing about that is I get to get a book out the other end of all I'm doing is talking to some people who really know this band and interviewing them, interrogating them, and then having them tell me all the great things about this song and that song and the next song and the next song that I didn't know all that well. And so it's like my subterfuge motive is like, okay, now I'm just going to go to a lecture about this band. I'm going to learn about all these Cure albums that I've owned, you know, two-thirds of them or half of them, and I've known the band all my life, but I just don't feel like I've studied them well enough. And there's certain old Genesis albums I've always felt that way. So what I love about those panel books is that for the reader, that's what they're going to get out of it. But I'm right in there at the same time with the reader, saying, yeah, tell me about this album. Teach me this album. Make me love this album more. So that's always been a lot of fun. Now bands that I totally know nothing about, I would stay away from something like that because what one thing is you get older, you get to learn to have more caution about things that you really don't know about. And I realized that if I wrote about certain things, it would be really obvious that I'm not the right person to write this book. I'm not that fanboy that lived and sweated this band since 1976 kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so there are certain bands where I know the fans are going to sniff this out, that they know that I'm not a knowledgeable fan, and I'm just writing it like an external person on this, because you can tell when I give my opinion in my books, you could tell it's an opinion that I will defend to the death, even if it's a weird opinion. I'll know when it's a consensus opinion, and I'll know when it's like a completely oddball opinion, but I will defend it to the death because I've lived it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that comes through, and I love that. It's you're passionate about these things that have lived inside of you, and that you've grown up with and studied. And
And I get to look smart, Scott, because you only hear about the things that I do know about, and you don't hear me going on our contrarian shows or whatever. I get asked all the time, "Hey, you want to do something on this band?" I go, "I know nothing about that band. I can't do it." Right. So that's the funny thing.
I would say that happens very few times though, because you have so many bands. Like myself, I'm the same way. Where I don't want to miss anything. So I spent my young life in the record store, picking up records that had great images, or they had great song titles that really appealed to me, and I didn't know who they were. Bought the record, I took it home, and I fell in love or didn't. uh
Yeah.
you know but I spent the time reading the liner notes, and I know who mastered it and produced it. That doesn't happen anymore. For the kids these
Yeah.
days, it's not a thing. But we get details like that in your books, and I thoroughly appreciate that. I can really relate with all of those things. Um, I look at this book, the Guns N' Roses book, and all the other books, the design, the layout, the photography, the little tchotchkes that are in there, the ticket stubs, and all of that. Really fun look, as you know, as in addition to the read. Um, how involved are you with the design and the layout? That's more of a Quarto thing, right?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
that. Yeah, I love working with Dennis because he's a huge music knowledgeable guy himself and a big fan. And he really takes pride in his work as well. So quite often, in most cases, and more so in the past, we're collaborating a little more these days. But he will go through and pick all those pictures, and he will be very pained to make sure. Like I'm already hearing with this Guns N' Roses book, a lot of super fans. The first thing they say is, "Wow, there's a lot of pictures in here I've never seen before," right?
Mhm.
And it takes a smart guy like Dennis to know that, right? Um, and then me, of course, I will know whether something's a popular photo or not or whatever. But yeah, and the photos like line up with the subject and all that, and then hand it off to the design people, and that's all really nice. I'm always blown away by the designs they come up with. So yeah, they're really good looking professional books, and like you say, none of their books, fortunately, they're not true, full on picture books where I do get a lot of my own shots in as well. I can be positive, I can be negative. I'm just going to give you my opinion in these things. It's not going to be a complete hagiography or whatever that word is, right? Um, but yeah, I these Quarto books, I just constantly get great compliments on what we've picked for pictures. In the old days, I don't know if he still does this, but he would go on eBay and buy memorabilia just to take a picture of to put in the book and stuff. So they're very dedicated to get great shots in the books.
And it shows. Yeah, it's they're all just stunning. You know what I mean? I just open these things and it's like, wow, this is just a treasure trove for the fan for sure.
Yeah.
And the presentation, like I say, there's gloss and matte, treatings to these books, and it's not just print on paper. There's so
Mhm.
much to it. It's really
Yeah.
a great design. Um, this knowledge, this Guns N' Roses knowledge, does it? Yeah, it felt like when I'm reading it, and there's a lot about the club days, the early years, Manny Charlton, producing that, the early Appetite demo kind of thing. All of this stuff is really detailed information. How much of that comes firsthand for you? You do the research and all of that, but I felt like you were in the room. It really felt like you had firsthand experience in the club days. Did you see them in the club back in the day? How much of that is
No,
firsthand?
because I grew up in a small town in BC, British Columbia. I'm in
Uh,
Canada. By 85, 86, 87. Where would I have been at that point? So I would have been, my undergrad university was in Victoria. Then I did an MBA in Hamilton, Ontario. So at that point, I'm in Hamilton. Then I moved back to Vancouver. Then I've been in Toronto for 35 years. So no, I was not there at all. I mean, a lot of that stuff is put together just kind of by research. But I bought all the albums as new releases. I knew about them, all through. It's hard not to know about them because if you're a massive music fan, Guns N' Roses is definitely in the headlines all the time.
yeah.
So I was soaking in all that stuff throughout the whole thing. Was a big fan the whole time. Loved the Use Your Illusion albums. Followed the whole Chinese democracy saga and all that. Seen them. Ah, boy, how many times have I seen them? Not very many. Um, it would be, see, here's the funny thing. I'm definitely not a big concert guy. I couldn't care less about concerts. So when I see bands, it's almost always because I got a free ticket. It was something random.
Right.
It's almost like people asking me to go begging, "Hey, I got a ticket, come with us." Okay, I'll go kind of thing. But Guns N' Roses, it's like I've maybe seen them live somewhere between 1 and 3 times, and I don't even know.
Okay.
It's if it's one or three or two. Um, and it's like that with a lot of bands I write books on. People are blown away. It's like, I can't believe you've only seen them that many times. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's concerts are a waste of time to me. It doesn't fit with my drinking schedule. I want to drink on an empty stomach at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock before dinner. As soon as I eat anything, I don't even want to drink anymore. I don't want to be up late. All this stuff. Right. But no, I'm definitely not a big concert guy, and these days, of course, you could get your fill of concerts just by watching YouTube in a way better way than you could trying to go to concerts,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I was a fan all the time, but I was definitely not in California during those times. What a complicated past, all that. Yeah, I mean, I did talk to
Wow.
Manny Charlton about those demos and stuff, but yeah,
Right.
weird past putting the band together. A lot of drugs, a lot of drink. The weird EP, the EP coming out later, fused with this, the album in between. It was a crazy, I suppose, fairly typical Sunset Strip kind of story.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I've talked with Tom Werman about the his he had a run in he went to see him in the early days, and went to a rehearsal, and Axel doesn't show up or something like that, and
Oh yeah,
he gets into it with Duff, and it just didn't work out. Michael Wagner I also talked with, and he says there was too many drugs, so he didn't take the gig. So there's this turmoil around the band, always. What are they going to do next? And that's kind of where they inherit that dangerous kind of moniker that they wear as a badge of honor.
yeah,
But these early club days, information that you got is extraordinary, as well as the photos from that time are really stunning too. It's just like I say, it feels like you were in the room, and that's the intimate part of your writing. It's
yeah.
really,
It's
it puts us there. Yeah, it's really great. What was the hardest?
and like you said, like I say, Dennis will say, I want a shot from that show to go with that, right?
Right.
All along kind of thing. So that's really cool too. Yeah. The pictures seem really topical all the time.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's I'm reading the text, and there it is. Right
Yeah.
next to the text, we have an image of it.
Yeah.
See images and words, beautiful marriage there.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of writing this book? There's a lot of research. There's, like I say, intimate details.
Yeah.
Was that the hardest part, to read the research of it, or was there anything that you ran into difficulty with?
I would say, yeah, the research is a hard part of it. And the other thing that happens, Scott, is when you get conflicting stories and you have to decide which one to pick, right?
Right.
And you can't go on and explain that there are two, three, four sides of this story, and this is kind of what I think happened, because you blow out your word count, right? So that's one thing that always is like very, and you're thinking of the super fan who's going to come back on you and say that's not what happened. And
Right.
then what's even worse that happens, Scott, sometimes, oh, this drives me crazy when I'm doing a book. It's like when you write something like that and you've spent like 30 minutes or whatever working out what this one sentence is going to say, because you're not quite sure what happened, and you make it a little vague just so it leaves the door open. And then 6 months later, an editor comes back and said, "Are you sure that's what happened?" And you go, "I have no idea how I came to that conclusion, but I'm pretty sure it took a lot of time to come to that conclusion. We have to go with it." Right.
Uh,
So that drives me crazy. One of the funnest things is coming up with what the 40 categories are going to be, like the 40 career highlights. That's always
right.
fun. Another fun thing is I came up with this early on in this concept, like naming every chapter after a song. So that was
Yeah.
really cool. Picking, oh, what goes where? What's going to go with
Yep.
this one? And you can make it a little inside joke that you got to be a real fan to understand why I picked that one
Right.
for them. So that's always cool. But again, another challenge, like I mentioned earlier, is just keeping the word count down and making sure it fits on the page.
Yeah.
Because yeah, you end up leaving things out. You end up really fretting over every sentence just to try get in everything, and remove two or three words here or there. You're checking your little word count thing in Word, going, "Oh, I
Right.
brought it down 30 words. Excellent. Oh, I need another 60." Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of challenges, and I'd say overall, the overall general wide challenge all the time is like, you don't want some know-it-all super fan who maybe even just wants to take you down a peg to start pointing out things you got wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, I see that. I see that in my podcast. Somebody
Yeah.
comes on and says, that's not correct. Well, I mean, it's hard to be accurate 100% of the time.
Yeah.
but I mean, your words are, in cement when you do these books, and
Exactly.
that's a huge pressure.
Yeah.
Because I know as a super fan of many bands, I see things that are, they get wrong. And it is a little bit bothersome. It's one of those things. But like I do have an understanding that nobody gets it right 100% of the time. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of funny. When I saw the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, love the movie. I know that Brian May was involved. This is one of those things where the one thing that bothered me was screwing with the timeline.
I
Uh,
know.
and it
Yeah.
was just like, oh
Weird.
no,
Yeah.
that didn't come before this. I did the
Yeah.
whole super fan kind of thing, but then I thought to
Strange.
myself, Brian was involved with this. He said, yeah, this is good. This is okay.
Yeah.
And does that make it okay for me? I was very torn. I thoroughly enjoyed the film, but was torn with that. So,
And Scott, and their excuse is always, oh, it makes the story better. We're trying to make a great story. It's like, well, you know what? Nothing's worth having that wrath come down on people and have that negative pointed out in every single goddamn review of the movie, right? Just make the story better another way. Come on,
yeah, yeah.
right?
It was, yeah, very torn, very torn. And like I say, for entertainment, I loved it. But it was it still bothers me a little.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
one of those things. It's that
Yeah.
super fan thing that I just can't get past. uh but Manny Charlton, I love that point in this Guns N' Roses book because I I'm a huge Nazareth fan. Hair of the Dog's one of my favorite records. um and the fact that they had brought him in, because he's not huge celebrity, he's not this gigantic name that everybody in the world knows. So that was great to see. But he says, professional and clean, when he met them and did that, and Axel was very together. His plan to manipulate the media kind of thing. He had his shit together.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Very focused. I've gotten different things, like I say, from Michael Wagner and Tom Werman coming in. They didn't get that. So I wonder why that is. He caught them at a different time. But and Axel later is arriving late and walking off stage and all of the antics. Do you ever feel like, after I read this in the book, I thought, is this Axel manipulating the media? The arriving late, the walking off stage, the complaining about the sound and all of that. Um, was that part of it? Is this Axel playing the game, playing the publicity game? Did you have a
That's
thought on that?
interesting. That's a really good deep point. That's a risky way of playing the game because I feel like so what I really feel it is, first of all, to circle back, I from writing this book, I really had a growing respect of Axel as a creative person, as an artist. He really strikes me as someone who is not afraid to collaborate with people, so that goes against his recluse sort of reputation. But I feel like he doesn't really care about the success in a huge way, or he got that way where it's more about the art than anything. So if things don't come out ever or on time, he doesn't care. He just wants to be perfect. We did learn that he was a real perfectionist over the years, and that was one of the rankling points against the rest of the band. But yeah, if it was sort of a sly ruse to be in the headlines or manipulate the media, it was a really risky way of doing it, because
Yeah.
you do cause a lot of bad will. And on the subject of bad will, I felt like doing this book. This is a band like Motley Crue that did build up a lot of bad will for all those reasons, but Motley Crue never got it back. And Guns N' Roses just slowly, methodically over time by packing a lunch and going to work, and Slash being such a great guy and Duff being a great guy and helpful and rehabilitates himself and goes on to get an MBA and all this stuff.
Right.
And Axl over the years, what he did with AC/DC, everybody had a lot of respect for him for the job he did there. Singing well, not perfect, but singing good later into his years than a lot of his co folks like a Vince Neil or a Stephen Pearcy or a Don Dokken. So I think over time, one of the neat things is Guns N' Roses clawed back their goodwill. Maybe they never actually had it. Put it this way, actually, I suppose this is a band that never had any goodwill, and then they eventually got it. Whereas Motley Crue maybe started from somewhat the same place, but never got it. But I think people really appreciate Guns N' Roses, and there's a warmth for them now that wouldn't have been there in the old days when it screwed up somebody's work schedule by having missing the show or having to stay late or whatever, or there being a riot or whatever reason. Or the arguments or hearing all the dirty laundry in the band kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's a cool thing about this band, that having reformed and done those tours and done a great job on them and being super professional, I think people really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. They've definitely, all of that bad publicity, if there's such a thing, they did improve, for sure. They grew up, you could say. Yeah, for sure. The interview with Tommy Stinson and the Chinese democracy sessions, I've talked with Bumblefoot about that, and there's this, everybody seems to have a different view angle on the Chinese democracy sessions. What did you think of that record? Were you surprised that it didn't do better?
Yeah, I suppose I'm surprised it didn't do better, but I guess now we've got a sub narrative of bad will. There's so much bad will built up around that album
Right.
specifically because it took so long and so many false fits and starts. Oh, it's coming, and it never comes. And then when it does come out, I thought it was a great record. And again, it
I thought
proved Axl is a true artist. But I love the fact and respect the fact that it doesn't sound like the other Guns N' Roses records.
Mhm.
And we can all debate whether it should have had the Guns N' Roses name on it, of course, having all this labyrinth of players over the years leading up to it, sort of thing. But yeah, I thought it was long, ambitious, complicated, artistically daring, intense,
Mhm.
good lyrics, everything about it. Cool title, Chinese Democracy, really cool title, weird artwork. That was pretty cool. So yeah, I was completely happy with that. It's funny. I did a podcast episode a little while ago. The top 10. Speaking of lists, the top 10 favorite answers for how many Guns N' Roses albums there are. Right. Um, and because it's such a weird catalog, right? With the
It
EP
is.
and then GN'R Lies. Is it an EP at 30 minutes or is it an album? It's half live, it's half acoustic. Then we
Right.
get an album. Then we get two albums together that are super long. So is it three albums or is it one album? Because it's just
Right.
Use Your Illusion. And then a covers album and then a few songs here and there. So like they're breaking rules the whole time. But you also do get Chinese Democracy, which some people count and some people don't. But I think people forget that there's Duff, there's Slash's Snake Pit, there's Slash featuring Miles Kennedy, there's As Long Izzy Stradlin catalog, right?
Yep.
So these guys it's only Axl that wasn't prolific through
Mhm.
all these years. Everybody else is Velvet Revolver, of course.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and then Duff had other sub little things. So these guys, I think what you learned over time is that maybe in the early days, if you question them, if you were skeptical, you might say, well, are they in it for the right reasons or do they just want to party or be famous? But
Right.
you learn that they are in it for the right reasons. They love music so much that they don't care really particularly how famous the music's going to be, how big the venue is that they're going to be playing in. They are going to make music. They are going to write songs. And that's what all these guys did. So I love that about it. And so one of my answers, in this top 10 answers is like there's 30 albums out. There's 30 Guns N' Roses albums.
Yeah.
Because really, the other thing you learn is that when they're away from the band, they kind of still like this same kind of music, more or less. They're still
Hmm.
rockers, right? So
Yep.
so even that proves the legitimacy of how real and authentic, and the reason Appetite for Destruction is one of the biggest selling albums of all time. They are true to what they believe. So so that top 10 list ranged from like 30 to one. If
Right.
if you're not a fan of the band at all, you just say, "Ah, they only had one good album. They only put out one album. They've been touring that album for their whole lives. It's only Appetite for Destruction." So I think that's a funny thing about this band too.
It is. It really is. Because when I encountered the band, I saw them open for Alice Cooper on that tour. They're horrible live. They were really very intoxicated, you could tell. Not sharp, not tight. Um, but they had this punky kind of Aerosmith thing, and me growing up with Aerosmith, I just felt like they were an whiny LA version of Aerosmith. But the songs were good. The guitar player was great on record. Like I say, when I saw him live, it wasn't the greatest, but that was very early. So, and then that's one thing I hear with this band is they're one of the most overrated bands ever. Do you ever feel that way? Being a fan of the band?
Yeah, I can understand that. Because I love that. I love that debate about what underrated and overrated actually mean. I think I did an entire podcast episode on like what does overrated mean, right?
Yeah.
So I would put Guns N' Roses and Led Zeppelin in that category. It's like, first of all, to be called an overrated band, you have to be rated super, super, super high.
Right.
So that's the first thing. You start there.
Right.
And then like, do you deserve that, right? And so I've always thought that about you know you could definitely say Guns N' Roses are overrated, because what album deserves to have 30 million in sales, or 18 million in America, or whatever it is, right? um
Right.
I should remember these numbers. I think it's 18 million in America. I think it's 18 times platinum or something like that,
Wow.
right? But I remember having that discussion once with Kirk Hammett. We didn't have a lot of time to go into it, but it's this weird idea that why does the Black Album deserve to be 11 million copies
Right.
when you've got other albums that are almost as good, really, on the face of it. I mean, if you're going to work super, super hard to make your 10th Testament album, or an Overkill album, or a Death Angel album, it's
Right.
really almost as good, right?
Right.
And so why does that deserve to sell 100,000
Yeah.
versus 11 million, right? Or even within your own catalog, like why is Back in Black this big, and they've got albums that are like gold,
Right.
or gold or single platinum, right? So absolutely, you can understand why they would be an overrated band. And the other reason, because what you just said is such a great point, and I got in an argument with some radio station guys the other day, but I remember when that album came out as well. I thought exactly what you said, just right there, Scott. Although what I thought is, like, this is clearly another hair metal album. It's just a really good one.
Right.
But
Right.
it is squarely a hair metal album, right?
Uh,
And it's like, okay, they changed the course of hair metal a little with it by being a little more gritty and street. I always coin those terms like bluesy hair metal or dirty hair metal, right? And
Right.
it caused hair metal to shift. But it's not Nirvana, Bleach, and Mudhoney, and Green River, and Pearl
No.
Jam, or Faith No More, or Jane's Addiction, or Minutemen. I mean, it's not really changing things in a huge way. Like you just said it, it's whiny Aerosmith, right?
Yeah, that's what it was for me. Yeah, growing up with Aerosmith, the parallels are uncanny. I mean,
Yeah,
and I see they do Mama Kin, on the EP
yeah,
there. I was like, well, I mean, it's all over. It's tattooed on their face. They are an Aerosmith.
yeah.
which, I'm not against. I love the band. So, but that's what this is. Let's
Yeah.
not, let's not, make it something that it's not.
And it's not fair to, like, I sometimes fall into this as well, and there's a whole discussion you can have about it. But I personally like, for example, the Badlands album better than Appetite for Destruction. And I
Huh.
like Love Hate's second album way more than I love Appetite for Destruction. But it's 5 years later for that. And it's 2 years later for Badlands. So there's an element of, it's like a sports analogy where you're breaking the record first. You're new in a mold, or you're inventing a new kind of music. Guns N' Roses definitely is not inventing a new kinds of music, but
Right.
but it is, it's unfair to compare this Guns N' Roses masterpiece, Wasted in America, to the Guns N' Roses album, because they've been able to learn off the Guns N' Roses album to get that good.
Yeah.
So like I say, in sports, you break a 100 meter record, and someone else eventually breaks it. But it's still important that there are these other people who broke the records back then.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's just it. You don't get this band without having this band.
Yeah.
It's all a domino effect throughout the years for sure.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Axl and AC/DC, I've heard these clips and I'm stunned, really. I don't think a whole lot of Axl. He's a singer. He's not one of these greats, I don't feel. But I hear this, him and AC/DC, and he's killing it. And I talked to Chris Slade, the drummer at that time with them, and he had reservations, but said that Axl was on time, and they're big on that in AC/DC, I guess. On time, professional, ready to go.
Yeah.
And I thought, is this the same Axl?
Yeah.
where's the Axl we know? So we got that Axl with AC/DC, and your thoughts on that, hearing the clips and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, first, let me disagree with you on something. I would push back that he's not one of the greats, because here's the thing. I've never really thought about this, but so one thing I do like to talk about is, here's your voice and here's you as a singer, right? So there's a lot of people who can sing, they have a boring voice, or there's a lot of people who have a great voice and they can't sing. And then there's some people who have a really cool voice and can sing. So I think he does both there. So that's good. I think he is a true artist, and I think he's a great lyricist. So that's great too. I think the two negatives about him are the petulance that we've lived with that caused the bad will, and the fact that he wasn't as prolific in his career as many other people, right? So he is a very creative person in terms of, he is a perfectionist, and when you get art from him, it will be great art. He just didn't make a lot of art. Now, moving on to AC/DC, I totally agree with everything you said. I think he gained so much goodwill by being very respectful, professional, didn't hog the limelight. I thought it was a very weird choice, because he's such a massive rock icon that it's so distracting to
Yeah,
have him in there. I
I
think
agree.
I think an AC/DC purist fan would have pushed back on that. Like, we would have wanted Mark Storacci or Dan McCafferty or somebody like that,
Right,
right?
right.
We
Yep.
had our choices that we've always fantasized for decades that would have been great in that role or could have done a good job. And I thought hiring Stevie Young was just a brilliant choice as well. He's in the
Totally.
family, he's an unknown, he's on Starfighter's albums. So cool. What a
Yep.
great choice, right?
It really was.
But and then Chris Slade's a weird one, because he's big and bald and he doesn't fit in the pictures, right? But you think
Right,
of Ronnie Wood going into the Stones. I mean, the guy looks exactly like a Rolling Stone, right?
right.
It's like perfect, and his whole past and pedigree. So that's a cool topic itself. It's like, what are good choices for replacements, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, Axel like comes into AC/DC, and literally in one person, he's almost like as big a rock story as AC/DC ever was,
Hmm.
right? So it's almost like the merging of two bands up there on stage rather
Yeah.
than just hiring one person on, right? But yeah, you're right. He did an amazing job.
He
Absolutely.
did. And it really felt good as an AC/DC freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that, I'm like, no, not Axl. And it's just, and it's that back to the singer thing. I think a lot of it is just your appreciation of tone. And I'm not somebody that really appreciates his tone. Not to say that he's bad at it. It's just that particular tone, that
Oh, it's an
whine.
obscure voice that's very hateable. It's like a Geddy
Right.
Lee, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, obviously it's you're right. It is a voice that isn't for everybody, but it is a
Right.
very strange and remarkable voice. It's a
Yeah.
weird one.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I hear, like I tend to like Civil War and Patience, where he's using the lower voice and he's actually
Yeah.
singing out. you know
Yeah.
um and I hear, Dylan's knocking on heaven's door, and I just get this squirmy kind of, it just sounds bad to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. That's a
you
great
know
point. Yeah.
that squeezing, whiny kind of thing. But that's a trademark thing for him, and people love that. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Just that kind of thing's not for me.
Yeah.
Will we get another ever get another Guns N' Roses album? Is Chinese Democracy the last one we're ever going to get?
Yeah, they're threatening it. I'm surprised
Yeah,
it hasn't come by this point, because those guys do seem to like making albums. So other than Axel. Axel doesn't really like making albums, it seems. But yeah, I am surprised. And I do like that they've been dribbling out these songs, occasionally, and some sound like old Guns N' Roses, and then you've got the General or whatever it's called is very different, and everybody debates that, and
right.
go the internet lights up the internet. So I would love to see it, and I would be perfectly fine if they even took a lot of these dribs and drabs along the way and redid them and put them on. But yeah, I get the feeling Axel is so much of a perfectionist that he's growing into a caricature of that role, and
Mhm.
maybe it's like affecting him and paralyzing his creativity a little. I don't know, but again, all the old wounds can come out too, because now he's got to butt heads with these other strong writers in Duff and Slash.
Yeah.
Um, and they don't really seem to be from particularly the same world. I mean, Axel wants to push much further forward, and those two guys are a little more traditional
Yeah.
in what they like to do. So you never know. But yeah, I think, and they seem to be such canny businessmen too. That I'm surprised that this just hasn't been part of like the business plan all along. That there's three more albums already, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the shock to me. But I think that you touched on it. Axel is that perfectionist. He's gonna take a long, long time. And Slash, I think, is just like, no, we need to get this out. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it falls apart, I think, is what
Yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah.
come down to. And that's a shame. Because like you, I really appreciated the Chinese Democracy record. I think it's one of their better outings. The songs are very strong for me, and I think Axel, he reminded me a little bit. I heard a little bit of a Jeff Tate kind of thing, even at times. He really took time with the voice and everything on that record. I thought, it's I'd love to see another record.
It's funny, Scott. Another parallel is I remember talking to the Aerosmith guys about this over the years, and it feels like Steven Tyler is the perfectionist, the ballad guy, the let's work everything to death guy in that band, and the guitarists and Tom Hamilton, they want to knock this thing out. They want to get some
Yep.
good rock and roll. They want to make an album like Rocks again, right? And then by the time it happens, months and years go by, and it turns into this big corporate album that's way too overproduced, that's too long, that's got five ballads on it,
Right.
and they kind of blame that on Steven, right? So
Yeah.
it's somewhat the same feel. Like you imagine that Axel would be the guy that would completely slow the process down, and even if you worked at this all the time, it would be 5 years between albums.
Yeah, that is very similar. The only difference, I guess, would be Aerosmith did consistently put out albums. It was they were pretty not prolific maybe, but they kept pace.
Well, as time goes on, it just seems less and less and less, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's kind of
right.
like we used to say that about AC/DC and the Stones. And then once, you see the pattern for 15 years spreading apart, that's fine. But then once we've got 30 years to look at, boy, there's a long time between some of these
Yeah,
albums.
no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
Um, I have to ask you about your latest book. This is my band. Part of my holy trinity, the Iron Maiden book.
Oh, nice.
It's crazy, crazy. It hurts my hand to hold it.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is it? It's like 12 pounds, this thing.
Yeah.
It is just, and it is a Bible for the fan. And it is huge for me. I have the album by
Oh,
album, which
yeah.
are they're always fun. I love the album by album series. Judas Priest here as well. The Maiden book. Just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But you put out as like a signature edition after this one. I
Yeah.
see
It's the one in the
that.
big box behind me here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and I saw that and I'm like, wow, time to write Martin another check.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. That is gorgeous, and I love the respect you give to Maiden. One of your favorites, Maiden. You do a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been with them since the very beginning too. Although I never did own a copy of Soundhouse tapes. I came on with the first album, an import copy of it, before it came out in the States and all that. And yeah, that book's the longest book I've ever done, 666 pages.
Yeah.
It didn't go from scratch. I had a trilogy of self-published books that got smooshed together and updated and reconsidered, and then Senjutsu chapter added and Mandrake project chapter added. So one thing I like about that book is that it's really the book of the Bruce Dickinson albums as well,
Yeah.
and British Lion. So everything is in there. Every
Everything.
single thing I know about Iron Maiden, it's everything but the kitchen sink. It's kind of the same thing I did with the Rush trilogy, right? I mean, if you put those together, they'd actually be longer than the Maiden book. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that Schiffer Publishing. They've been a joy to work with, and I love that they had no fear. When Bob said to me, I said, "Oh, so what do you want to do with this?" And he says, "Oh, let's just do the whole thing. Let's make it one huge book." It's like, "Are you serious?" And it's like full color throughout. Absolutely. So there's like
Oh,
400, 500 pictures in there. So it is a massive, massive undertaking. And yeah, but again, it's my style. It might be boring to some people, but it's like I'm literally writing about every album, every song. There's a format, there's a formula, little about the production, the album, the album cover, the very little on the touring, very little on the personal lives. It's good amount on the lyrics. And that's it. So all these books I do are loosely speaking, you can call them band biographies, but they're more like the biographies of the records.
yeah, but well, and that, I mean, like you said, there's nothing that, I mean, I'm a super fan. Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, the Holy Trinity for me. I grew up with that. I love that. I absorb myself in that. And super fan puts it lightly. This is everything. It's everything. I mean, it is song by song, album by album. It is facts. It is early days. It is solo projects. It is everything.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's so massive that I almost can't wrap my head around it. How you take the time to do that. Man, oh man, you are a blessing, my friend.
Well, there's a longer book coming than that, also
Oh,
through Schiffer Publishing. It's called 7 Decades of Deep Purple. And it's I think it came in at 700 pages. So,
unbelievable.
and I'll show you this one. You're the first to ever see this. This is an exclusive. This is the brand new Dio book through Schiffer. And
Oh,
it's 400 pages. It's not out for another month or so, but it also is. Let me hold this up to the camera. It also is full color throughout. It's exactly like the Maiden. It's just not quite as long, but it's hardcover, embossed,
uh,
beautiful. I mean, I love the design of it, the fresh colors. Um, And yeah, there you go.
Just beautiful. And who's not a Dio fan? Come on. Uh, wow. That will start with Elf, I would imagine, or
Not
Ronnie and the
particularly.
Red
Well, no,
Caps.
actually, yeah. No, to explain this one, it absolutely is not. There's no rainbow in it. There's no elf. I mean, just a little bit, right? There's no Sabbath because I wanted it to be. What's the subtitle of this thing here?
It's the
Uh,
scriptures or something,
the
right?
complete, yeah, Dio, the Unholy Scriptures, the complete unofficial chronicle of Ronnie James Dio's solo canon. So this literally is
Wow.
400 pages about nothing but the Dio albums.
Oh man. Wow. The detail has to be incredible. Because that's a whole other thing. So
Yeah.
many people passing through that wonderful catalog. Wow.
Yep.
It's great, man. Martin, I don't, what, do you ever look up from your desk? And I see your art collection. I wanted to touch on that a little bit. You have abstract paintings available on the website, martinpopoff.com, as well as a collection of colored pencil on black rockstar illustrations.
Yeah, the abstract paintings are not really available. I've never made prints of them, and they are massive and they can't be shipped. I mean, people have wanted to buy them from me, and I just said, forget it, man. It's going to take hundreds of dollars to get this to you,
I
right?
thought you had
Um,
prints.
Well, no, and I did those in the 90s and I want to get back to doing that, but I stretched my own frames and they're really complicated materials and stuff and it was really cool and I want to get back to it. But then I did come up with something shorter. I mean, I've done pencil drawings just that go into my two Blue Oyster Cult Imaginos books. I did 39 each of those. But yeah, I've been doing these pencil crayon on black paper pictures of rock stars and fake ads. Like I love ads and so I made up ads and I would draw those and like, oh, let's put this in the ad and then take the text from this and move it here and make it bigger. So I did a lot of that. So I've done a little bit of that over and those I did make prints of and stuff, but I haven't done that for a little while. I think if I go back to art, which I would love to do because my job is literally I'm like somebody who turned having a fan club for a bunch of different bands into a modestly paying job. It's not actually making my own art. I'm just writing about other people's accomplishments, right? So yeah, I would love to get back to literally going up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and actually doing the art rather than just writing about other people's art, right? Um, so yeah, I absolutely want to do more of that for sure.
Yeah. And I love your take on what you do. You are the consummate artist for sure. What you give us as in just the books alone is massively entertaining, and not anybody
Well,
can do
thanks.
that. It's
Appreciate it.
it's just
Appreciate it.
so great, and I want to thank you for this. And I want to ask you a little bit too.
Mhm.
This is a band I always loved, Angel. Not too many people, nobody writes books about them. You know, so something like this, how does a publisher approach that? Do you approach the publisher and say, "Hey, there's this band Angel. They've been around. I want to do a book on them. Uh, will you back me?" Because I would imagine a publisher doesn't come to you with this one and says, "Hey, we want to do a book on an Angel."
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's only really happened with my UK publishers. So often with these bands, there's been a bit of a trend. There's been a lot of bands that I just self-published books on. So as the first version, right? So like for example, right now I'm working on updates of my okay, so I had a White Snake book come out through a UK publisher who's no longer business, and that's coming out through Weimer. But my Max Webster book, I self published first. Now it's coming out through Weimer. My Merciful Fate, self published first. Now through Weimer. Angel, I think Angel I did. Hang on, did I ever do? Yeah, I think that version. Yeah, that's right. So Angel I actually self-published first and then Weimer took it over. So they seem to be brave enough and street level enough that they don't worry about the selling tons and tons of copies. They've got a good layout guy they work with who's just kind of always on with them, retainer kind of thing. And these aren't super high production books like everything else we've been talking about. So there isn't like tens of thousands of dollars of investment into having it come out. So the long and short of the answer is I have enough bravery to do a not very high production values trade paperback book and self-publish it. And they seem to be of the same mind when it comes to them putting it out as a publisher. But you're right. I couldn't get Quarto to take on an Angel or a Max Webster book or a Riot book or an Accept book. The Riot's out through Weimer now. The Accept is coming out, updated through Weimer now. The Scorpions is coming out. That'll be the third time that came out. They took over my Blue Oyster Cult. And I've always found, Scott, like, when I self-published these books, I kind of had a lot of success. There's a lot to be said for being the only book on the market on a band,
Right.
even if the band is small. So I've, generally speaking, have not had failures with these tiny bands. Some of them have turned out to be some of my best-selling books.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, because I love it. And again, it's packed with text. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I do wonder if you ever look up from your desk.
Well, people
Great.
ask me that and think, oh, you put out a lot of books or whatever. So number one, I write fast. Number two, it's my only job. And most people who do this have jobs on the side or they start off that way. I mean, I went full-time rock journalist in 2000. So it's been 25 years that I've literally been full-time at this. Went from 94 through to 2000, I had a job and I was doing it on the side, right?
Right.
But so when it's your main job, and I really don't feel like it doesn't feel like a job. So I actually do work 7 days a week. But I probably, if you really added up how much work I do in each of those 7 days, I doubt it really rarely gets over 5 hours, 5 or 6 hours, right?
Wow.
So, although, evenings sometimes as well. So it's like I work whenever the hell I feel like it, right? But I really don't think, in most cases, I really put in more than like a 50-hour work week for sure. I'm not like an 80, 60, 70 hour, never, right? So I really don't work that hard. But one thing I have noticed, because I've had so many people come to me and they want to write a book, and I quickly can tell who the term is stone cutters, right? I can tell who the stone cutters are, where it's like, you will never get this done because it takes you an hour to put together a page, right? It's like, no, you're not a writer. You might actually write really well, but you write so slow that it's impractical to think you're going to have 2 or 3 books out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you have to write extremely fast. I'm doing the numbers and I'm thinking just the reviews alone, 8,000 of them. If you did, 2 a day, you're still talking a long period of time. And that's not counting, writing the books and doing the
Yeah.
art. You're a busy guy. We love you
Mhm.
for it. It's just so great. You've stocked my bookshelves, and I'm so grateful for it, man.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Very cool.
absolutely. Martin, I could talk to you for days. We could talk about every band that you've ever written about, and some you haven't. But I we can't do that. We got to get on with our lives, and this has been wonderful, man. Um,
Cool.
I hope we can do it again. Maybe when
Yeah,
the deal
there's more
okay.
books. Like I say, there's the Dio book coming. There's the
Yeah.
Deep Purple. There's early 26. We got Kiss 76 coming.
It's
So
beautiful.
through Quarto, which looks beautiful. I've seen designs of that too. It's going to look really nice. So
Kiss 76, is it the
yeah,
bicentennial year?
it's
Or
basically it's looking at everything Kiss did in 76 plus everything kind of everybody else did in 76. Toys, TV, all your band, your competition, world events, maybe some plane crashes in there. I can't remember. Maybe
Right, right.
some military coups, but it's like all the TV shows we watched and the everything else we dealt with, movies that came out. So it's more like a great reminiscence of if you were there experiencing Kiss in '76. What was your life like in '76? That's what that's about.
Man, so great, man. And the ideas, wonderful ideas, wonderful concepts, and of course the text, just wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you,
All right.
Martin. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate you. And
Wicked. All right, man. This has been a lot of fun, Scott. Very cool.
absolutely. All
All
right.
right.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Yeah.
All right.
Bye now. All
Bye.
right.